Welcome back, I'm Captain Xavier, and today I'm going to be doing a review on the worker flywheel upgrade kit that was sent to me by LighTake.com. They asked me if I wanted to do a review on some flywheel stuff, and I said, well, absolutely. So they sent me this, and it is a full kit. It's got the motors, the flywheels, the flywheel cage, and all of the wiring pre-cut, as well as the switch and all of the screws that you need to do a strife. It does then apparently come with what I can only assume is a rapid strike barrel. As far as I've been told, the rapid strike and the strife use the same flywheel cage, or at least they're interchangeable. And so they gave you this barrel if you're doing a rapid strike. There would be more that you would need as far as switches, because it only comes with the one switch, and the wiring obviously wouldn't be correct for a rapid strike. But for a strife, the wiring is perfect and works quite beautifully. It is, they did appear to be 180, so I did have to cut the shell. You might be able to get away with it, as you could see, as you'll see in the build video coming up. But I went ahead and cut it because I plan to use this particular strife as a test bed for all sorts of motors and cages and stuff going forward. So I decided to go ahead and cut it anyway. And I will probably in the future wire it for LiPo just because that's the better way to go. But for this, I decided to go ahead and run it on IMRs. There's 3 IMRs in there and a dummy, so it works quite lovely. That's about the voltage that I believe they're recommending, between 12.8 and 14.8. I assume that's what those numbers mean. I can't read the rest of it. But it definitely works well on the 3 IMRs. Obviously, they wouldn't... they have their issues. If you've done your research on the difference between LiPo and IMRs, IMRs aren't really designed for the amount of current that is required by high-end motors, nor for the sustained draw that you see from flywheels, whereas LiPos are specifically designed for that because they're used in RC cars and drones and so forth. So that's kind of the idea on that. It'll work for a little while, and they're definitely a lot cheaper, and they fit in cages and all of that. But if you're going to be running really high torque motors like 180s and whatnot, you should definitely look into going to LiPo. But for lower upgrade motors, they're not so bad. Anyway, let's get the build video going, and we can discuss the details after that. So here we go. It comes with a metal flywheel cage, which is absolutely lovely. Metal flywheels, but unlike normal metal flywheels, these ones do not use retaining screws. They still have the screw holes for them, but they have put in a rubber or plastic gasket sort of looking thing that then holds them on friction like old ones. So you have all of the beauty of aluminum flywheels, but without the problem of having those screws that come loose or strip out. So that is super cool. I'm hoping they will actually hold. It also comes with motors that are... I have no idea what the specs on these motors are whatsoever. I'm hoping they don't require cutting the shell. They're definitely longer. I don't know if they're actually full 180 length. If I have to cut the shell, I will cut the shell. I think I've got at least one strife flywheel cover around here somewhere. It might have been earmarked for something else. But if nothing else, I can still get it wired up so that we can test. It does also come with a metal-lined barrel, but still orange on the outside, so that's really neat. And then it does come with all of the wires pre-cut, and your switch, and the various screws, all nicely bundled for you. So it has pretty much everything you need. You will, of course, still need soldering iron and the necessary skills to use one. The other thing that it does not have is a battery attachment, but that is, I assume, because they don't know exactly what battery you're going to be using. Part of the problem of not knowing the exact spec of these motors is I don't know what battery I should use for them, honestly. I hope there might be an instruction online. It did come with this card, and all it says that I can read is 12.8 volts to 14.8 volts, and the darts I assume they recommend, which is neat. For ease of expediency, I am going to use the original battery housing and just use IMRs to see how well that works, and if that proves insufficient, I will rewire it for LiPo. I do have a number of LiPo options. But we're going to start with just wiring it directly to the battery cage and seeing how it goes. So let's get this thing open and get this thing upgraded. Alright, well, all of the original wiring can go. Would have been handy to have done this before I did that video on the diagnostics, because I could have just swapped these internals right in and I wouldn't have had to rewire the thing. Next time. Okay, so we've got all of that out. Next, I suppose we should prep the flywheel cage and all of that. So it is incredibly close to not requiring you to cut the shell. The motors will fit, the tabs are just a smidge high, but if you bent them down and were able to solder them without making contact to anything else, you might be able to, but frankly, I think you're probably better off going ahead and cutting the shell than risking it. Plus, I think having it pressed up against the shell would add extra vibration that you probably don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and... I already cut one half and then realized, it looks like I might not have to, but I think you do. So here's an interesting fact. Normally, when you get motors, you have to put them in opposite of each other. And there's usually a red dot on the back, and I hadn't looked closely enough because they've got these circuit boards on there, and I'm not sure entirely what those are for or what they do, but they have negative and positive labeled on them, and that is actually, one of them is opposite of the other. I looked closer and I saw the little red dots are on the same side now because I did not take that into account, that they would have put those boards on opposite of each other, so you would actually know which way they need to go. Which I've already got the flywheels on, and I've already got the motors glued in, so I am going to have to wire them crossed rather than directly, because I wasn't paying close enough attention. And because apparently Worker is expecting me to be paying attention. It appears either this is unusual or it was intended, but they've given you 3 lengths of long wire. So if you wanted to do, put an electric brake on the flywheels, you could. It's also entirely possible that they just gave me extra wire. Couldn't tell you which. Okay, so it looks like you just have to take off part of the tab here for the switch. So yeah, you can see how all the stuff went in, and it was actually very, very simple. Like I said, all the wires were pre-cut, which was lovely. The flywheels are metal, but don't require set screws, which is lovely. They do still have that beautiful ting when you fire FEJs, which we will see in the firing demonstration now. And the sun has actually come out and might be causing a bit of glare. Hopefully you can still see the chrono readings in there. This is the Workered Strife. It's going to be firing first 11 of my preferred AccuFake ammo and then 11 rounds of who knows what. Little bit of everything in there. So let's take a look. Lovely. Now for the random stuff. Well, that's just fantastic. So generally in the hundreds, right around 100, some in the 90s, a little bit above. I like it. You can definitely hear when it hits an FVJ with those hard heads, you hear that metal tink. All the other ones just have more of a regular kind of sound. But yeah, I like it. I'm looking forward to using it. All right, range test on the Strife. This is meant to be a war primary, so I'm going to be trying to hit a man-sized target at 60 feet. All right, with the Accu strikes, no problem. Let's try it with the random darts. Well, if ever you needed a solid endorsement on Accu strikes, there it is. Those were all over the place, whereas the Accu strike ones were beautiful. So, there you have it. Accu strike. Get yourself some. Right. We have the numbers and the accuracy and the ranges, and I am absolutely pleased with it. This is something I would be willing to use in a war, because little over 100 FPS average was definitely acceptable for our local wars, and the accuracy I was getting with those Accu fakes are beautiful. Also got them from LighTake, as well as this magazine, I believe. So, yeah, loving the stuff that they've been giving me. Looking forward to doing more reviews on that, and to actually using this stuff in a war. So, I would definitely highly recommend this kit if you're just getting into flywheels, because it's very, very simple. They've already got the wires cut for you. They've actually marked the motors in such a way that you just line up the positives, line up the negatives, make sure it's spinning the right way, and solder everything in. It's lovely. Probably going to end up using this in my Rapid Strike when I get around to building that, so it will not go to waste. Yeah, highly recommend Accu fakes in this, and they sell them by the 1,000, and it's fantastic. I will have all of their contact information in the description, as well as the links to this particular kit, and probably the darts that I used and this magazine. So they've got just about anything you could want for Nerf upgrades at this point. They've got all the worker stuff, they've got, I think they've got most of the artifact stuff, and they've got all sorts of other stuff that I'd never even seen or heard of. So many magazines and dart options. Lots of different combinations, always putting up different deals, so if there's a thing you want, keep your eye on it. Cyber Monday's coming up. I don't know if they're going to have any deals for that, but I would be surprised if they didn't, so check them out, LighTake.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you see anything on their site that you'd really like me to review before you order it, let me know, and I can contact them and say, hey, I've got people asking me to do this review, would you mind sending me one? Because there's a good probability that they will. So, suggestions that you would like to see down in the comments, and thank you guys for watching.